live button.
Thinking.
It's thinking. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Just Two Dads, the podcast that Sean Francis and I do every week. We're excited. See, there it is. I've already said it. We're excited about today's show. We're excited about every show because we actually love being in this conversation. I was just saying before we went live that I say it every week, and I'm not going to say it this time in here. What's the first thing out of my mouth? I'm excited to be in this show. So I'm Brian Altunian. I am a father of now, boy, my daughter's in her mid-20s. She's still my child, but she's in her mid-20s, married woman now, who grew up in special education. And so Sean will tell his story, but Sean's son is on the autism spectrum, and in the business that Sean and I share in the financial services world, we've been talking about how families with special needs family members deal with just the day-to-day life and those kinds of things. We know that there are educational resources available to families with special needs and therapeutic resources and occupational therapy and all that, speech therapy, and our company provides financial therapy, if you will. And as we began this conversation and talked about this community that we are members of, that we love so dearly, we thought, we keep having these phenomenal conversations. Why don't we share this and actually talk to the warriors and to the champions who are serving this community and give them a platform to, share what they do, because we're fascinated by it as parents in this space. We're fascinated by the conversation, and we just wanted to share that with everybody. So that's really the basis of our podcast. And we do this every week, live on Facebook Live and on Instagram, and then it stays up for a week or so in video form. We have a YouTube channel. We're now on Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, and Spotify, and now down in the U.S. Virgin Islands on WSTX AM radio. So we're really thrilled to be able to share this platform and share the conversation with everybody. So, folks, we're really excited about our guest today. You're gonna love this guy. The energy that comes out, you're gonna see it. For those of you who are watching, the energy is just gonna take over. But for those that are listening, you may have to pull over if you're listening in the car, and because it really is just a phenomenal. I called him an angel. He's an angel in a human being's clothing. But we're gonna let him tell you his story and how we got here. So before we do that, I'm excited to talk to you, Mark. But before we do that, I'm going to say hello to my partner in Thrive. I love that Sean called partner in Thrive. My partner, Sean Francis, one of my closest friends. We are, man. If we don't talk 15 times a day, it's an off day, right? Something's wrong. So how are you, buddy? How you doing today?
I am doing great. And just like you said, I know I say that each week. And to be honest, there's days where I may wake up not feeling necessarily the best, like today I barely got through my workout. I was just like, and then, you have the gift of interactions like this that just fire and lift you up. And so we'll get, right into it. It's such a privilege to do what we do and be a soldier of love and agent of change for the special needs community. And in doing what we do, especially as it relates to the show and bringing financial awareness to the special needs community, which we're doing with our, event tonight, which we'll talk a little bit about. What we'll talk about for the most part is soldiers and agents of change and warriors that do not have children with special needs. And for a while, we've always talked about, we want to make sure we get some teachers on the show. And we're talking about doing that with a roundtable of some sort. But today we've got our first special ed teacher who is with us, and he's a special ed teacher and he's great and everything, but his age, for the wisdom that he has for his age, stepping out like that, I think the story is just, fantastic. Welcome, Marc Esposito.
Hi guys, absolute pleasure to be on the show. Hello to your viewers. This is a fantastic opportunity, and just thank you again for allowing me to be on your channel. This is really exciting. I'm really happy to be here. So
we're honored, man. We're honored. We're gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
we're
most definitely.
Really,
it's all about just exchanging energy. So let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Tell us, if you will, a little bit about your story and what led you, someone that, like Brian says so eloquently, we're members of the special needs community by circumstance,
Right.
not choice. What led you to become a person who is a member of that community by choice, not having a
Mhm.
child on the spectrum? Tell us a little bit about that, and tell everybody about your
Right.
age too, because I think all of that plays
Yeah,
a
sure.
role.
So I'll get the age out of the way. I'm 29 years old, and I've been formally working in this field for 6 years now in special ed, also severe special ed. So what I guess started me in this journey was when I first went to college. I was a political science major, which I graduated in 2013 with. And so I studied a great deal about legislation and American government and foreign policy. And I always wanted to be somebody who helped others. I didn't know what capacity that would be, but I wanted to be somebody who helped others. So, I read a lot and I didn't know what I wasn't sure I was going to do. So I took a job at a local gym and I worked at the daycare in the gym. And I got to work with little kids. And I love working. I've always loved working with kids because there's just this innocence and they have no filter. They tell you exactly how they feel.
Sure.
But there's also, and there's also just this like really easy language. A great deal of it is just, it's very subtle and you just have to be patient and calm. And that's my favorite part is you don't really have to speak. You just have to pay attention to the subtleties and the nuances that they demonstrate through their behavior. So, I'm there and I'm working with these little guys and the youngest age they could bring was 3 months old to about 4 years old. And Brian, we've actually you attested to this, which was parents would come in, a lot of mothers, and they'd say, "Oh, here's my baby. Can somebody take him?" And I would say, "Oh, it's me." And they look at me and they go, "Yeah, but you're a guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's okay." And they're like, "Yeah, but are you sure you can handle this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, this is easy. I love holding, taking care of kids." So I got to go work with that and. Pretty soon I realized that I just really enjoyed working with kids. And so I was also at the time, a high school soccer coach. So I had to keep my title and I became, to remain as a high school soccer coach in New York City, I had to become a teacher's aide to remain. And so I got that title and I started working in a school. And I started to notice how I was working one-to-one and how much fun I was having because I was working with students who just needed just easy help. This was in the general ed community and sometimes in the special ed community. They just needed help with like just simple math problems or word problems. And I noticed that I was instrumental in helping them move forward and progress in the class. And then of course you have the teacher who's doing all the lesson planning and all the tasks. So I saw that and I go, I want to be really part of this. So I started moving around to different schools and I want to see how schools were different, their philosophy or their technique, their methodology. And I just appreciated that. And so soon after that, I decided to become a substitute teacher. And pretty quickly, I was assigned a school, a self-contained school. Now, the way that self-contained works in New York City is that it will be specifically dedicated to special ed needs and students. And there won't be any general ed students. So we'll have autism, Down syndrome, post-traumatic brain injury. You'll have emotionally disturbed. And anybody who falls in between that hasn't been assessed yet just needs a safe environment to be in. So the school I was at was shout out to PS 177, where I got my start. And I got a lot of great exposure there. We had ages 6 to 21, a lot of fantastic teachers. I mean, like just veterans. They've been there for decades and they've seen a lot of different students go through different transitions. They've seen how education, the pendulum swing of just proper techniques and seeing techniques become outdated. But they never lost their drive or their motivation. They were always there to support students and to be there for them. So after about a year working there and teaching a lot of the students there and learning from my colleagues, I decided to enroll at CUNY Queens College in their 3-year dual master's program for general ed and special education, which was grades 1 through 6. And I had a blast going through that program, and simultaneously I was working in the school, so I had great exposure. And then I was also working as a one-to-one life coach for the state of New York. So during the day, I would work at the school. Then I would go to school at night for my graduate program. And then on off hours, I would work as a one-to-one coach with individuals that were adults with special needs, typically autism. So that could be anywhere from like, a job site to a doctor's office to completing like any type of like job application, parent mediation, just, helping them communicate with one another. So I had a lot of great exposure, different ages, different disabilities. And at the same time, I'm learning techniques from Queens College, and they have a fantastic faculty there. I mean, one of my favorite is her name is Dr. Peshi Wang, and she actually ran this internship that I got to be part of, where I attended in Beijing, called Wu Sai Lu School. And she actually wrote the book, one of the first books on how to work with children with disabilities out there. And I got to study under her and another professor of mine, Dr. Brown. And they were really wonderful professors and just showed me what it was all about. But what really got me into special ed was, again, back to the political science major, which was I read the Jefferson letters. And, Jefferson would write these letters talking about what makes a great American citizen. And it was our government investing in the citizen itself. And it really started with education. And if we have a great education, then we have a great citizen. And the more citizens we have, the more diamonds we have, the more people can provide for our society. And the society just will do better. So I saw that as an opportunity where I get to be an educator, where I'm helping others, which I love doing in many different ways. I get to work with kids. And one of my biggest responsibilities was that, if I have a knowledge of something, it's my due responsibility to share it with others. It's not something that I can hoard for myself. It's a tool. And if someone can use it and do better than I, then why not? Because we're all a team, and that's all I've ever wanted. I wanted to be a team with society and others around me, and just help as much as possible, not to have helicopter money or drive the latest BMW or anything like that. But it's really just, just getting along with one another. And if you see someone down, just help them up. Like what love is free, compassion is free. So I'm happy to give it. And it's been a fantastic journey, just really exciting, and just great people I get to be with. Parents are fantastic, kids are fantastic. So pretty awesome.
It's.
Yeah.
I know Sean's got a whole list of questions to ask you, but I was going to say, first of all, what a refreshing. I mean, to think that the founding fathers of this country, and again, not talking about anything specific, but in general, the last several years, the pendulum has swung to individualism and profit to capitalism and that type of thing. And to think back to the Jefferson papers were all about how to make a good American citizen. Yeah. There seems to be this thing that has been going against higher education. And yet, really, if you go back to the very beginning, it really is all about creating opportunity for everybody. So, wow, that's that's an amazing thing. I love the idea that the moms would give you their children and look at you quizzingly because they know what they have at home, and they know like no man, what you that's not even, you can't, you don't even I'm sure that you just kind of break the mold for a lot of those folks. So
such a blast.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sean, I know you want to ask. You got some stuff from Mark. You want to? I was just going to say, I just love it.
It is. And the one thing that jumped out at me is, as you were talking about your experience at PS 177, you mentioned a very broad range of ages, and I'm sure here in Los Angeles, within LA Unified, I know there's an adult education within the district, and things like that. So it might be just my ignorance, but with the ages being that broad, how many students are we talking about within the school roughly?
We're looking at 500 students, and I had the honest privilege of teaching, working with all of them. Within that school, we had 500 students, and we had, in one classroom, you had a minimum of 2 teachers' aides up to 6 teachers' aides. Sometimes you need one-to-one support. Then you had speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. You had guidance counselors. You had special ed teachers, but you had specialties. You had music therapists. You had adapted gym teachers. You had people with skip training who were there. They were there as deans, but they were there to support when children were going to crisis, when students were going to crisis, and they would show proper restraint. So you don't harm the student, and just to make sure that they're okay, because sometimes they had to be swaddled. Some of them were so young, they were going to crisis for 20 minutes straight, and you have to hold them. You have to make sure that they're okay at that point, and you have to guide them out of that. And you have an emotionally disturbed student who goes into crisis, age 15, 200 pounds. It could be pretty scary, but you have to remember that it's scarier for them. And you got to work. You had a whole team there with you, and you would just come in and you would just work with them. So a lot of students, but even more personnel there, and administrators, visitors, school security. But all of them were great. I really miss them. I worked there for 4 years straight, and there's not a day that goes by that I'm not thankful for working at that school and their mission there as well. Just a fantastic energy that was there, just really great.
Wow.
And at the older age of that spectrum, at some point, I know we've talked about this on our podcast before, but at some point they age out of supported system, right? So and how do you help on the transition, or like how does that?
So that's the really cool part. When I worked with the state, I work when they age out at 21. So I work with 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and I'm in in Long Island. I'm part of that community as well when they transition out. So the transitional period can be really tough for the parents, because suddenly they had the support system from when their child was diagnosed all the way through. They had a place to go. The child themselves, the individual, is used to that routine. They're very comfortable. They know what to expect. And the biggest thing that we see with those with disabilities, expectation is everything. As soon as you remove that expectation, it's a massive pitfall. And then with the parents, when they feel that anxiety, it's compounded. And when they come home, it can be a really tough situation. So, I work with OPWDD, which is the Office of Persons for Disabilities. And it's wonderful. We work with fiscal intermediaries, and they hire life coaches like myself, and we work within the home or outside of the home. And it's with OPWDD, the state office, that transitional services are provided. So whether it be, they need physical therapy, or they need occupational therapy, or they need a mixture of both, or an interlaced plan, they're the department to reach and work with to provide those services. I'm not sure what it is for every state. If it is, that's what I want to hear. It's great. Yeah, I get to work with the adult population as well, which I've actually shifted towards more so because they're the ones who are in greater need. It's almost as if the younger population is oversaturated with personnel and support, and then suddenly at 21, that's it. It's gone. And you're looking at, some of these individuals. Some could be my brother. One of my clients right now, I look at him as my brother and my friend and my student all at the same time. And I look at him and I'm going, I can't let you down. I can't leave you behind. And then I go to these other events and I see, these other individuals and their friends, and they're happy to see me, and they're happy to show me like their latest jacket or what they're doing. And working with adults, it almost sounds like they're removed, but they're not, because we're the same. I might be 29, but I'm interested in the latest Marvel movie too. And I want to be here. Like, I'd rather be on a Friday night talking and hanging out with them than anybody else.
Wow.
Wow.
I think California, I think California and New York are very progressive. So we have the benefit of being in California where those kinds of services for adults are children who transition out and become adults. I think those two states are very progressive. And I know that there are several throughout the country, but not every state, to your point, not every state has that kind of
unfortunately
support. And I would think that even as a teacher, that would be frustrating, knowing that this child is going to age out and then no services to help and support. So great for you and that system there in New York. Sean, go ahead.
That's actually, I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, that's actually how Sean and I connected. We're part of this group of Brian. I'm not sure if you are as well on Facebook, but it's for adults who are transitioning. And, people post on there. Sometimes it's individuals with disability or it's a parent, and they're just seeking help. They're reaching out on social media. They want to not feel alone. And it could be so lonely out there. And it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't have to be. We're all here for you. Sometimes I wish I had like a flag or something that says like, I'm an advocate. I'm here in the background. I'm at Trader Joe's too. I see your kid. He's freaking out, or he's holding on the shopping cart. I just want to let you know I'm here too. But Sean and I connected. He had posted about his son. They went for a morning walk, and I saw him just going for it. He was being consistent. He was sharing his moment, and it was beautiful. It was a great moment. I just want to send positive feedback, and that's how we connected. And it's really hard. You see these other states, you see these parents in the other states, and they're like, what do? I want my son to learn how to drive, or my daughter aged out, or my son's presenting behaviors. How do I get them to the doctor's office? And I'm like, oh, I'm 1,000 miles away. Like, I don't even know who's in that town or in that district to reach for you. And I wish I knew, because I would love to call them up or shoot a text and be like, like, hey, Jane, can you go help so-and-so right now? Like, just to get them over. I know you know this technique. I know you have the stem ball for them to like just drive them over, or the blacked out, tints just to, if they're light sensitive or whatever it is. And it's tough, but we're all trying our best to help out in those states as well. It's just to connect between the two coasts. And I'm sorry, Sean, I cut you off before, but go ahead.
No, you didn't. Two things, and neither of them is a question, which is why it's okay for me to compound them as long-winded as I can get. The first one is just a thank you. You're going to think that this is not necessarily needed because I'm a present individual. I strive to be as the best I can possibly be. And and so people see me and my son and they see the post, just like the one that you mentioned. So you would think that that guy is as appreciative and patient and thankful for the opportunity to have his son as anybody could be. But I'm human. So what that means is when I hear someone like you speak, who is a part of the community, despite having a vision from outside, Einstein said that we can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness at which it occurs. And you're in it, but there's a piece of you that is outside. And what that allows you to do is have the perspective that you do when you're in it, like all in it, like you come home to it, you leave it's there all the time. You might not, you lose some of that perspective. And with that perspective, you've reminded me to try and make sure that I adopt some of yours. Like you talk about, like when the meltdown is taking place, it's like, it's more difficult for them than it is for you. True story. For instance, here in Los Angeles, it's been very windy the past couple days, and we lost electricity last night for a little while.
Okay.
Happened once before. So it goes out. That means there's no Wi-Fi. That means that the iPad is not being used.
Yeah.
That's huge. And my son is just trying to like screaming and like,
that's right.
Fix the Wi-Fi, fix the Wi-Fi. And I would like to tell you that it is okay, my son. The electricity will come back on. No, that's not what it was. My wife is close. My wife is closer to that though. And so, she's like, just think about it. And then I catch myself. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I needed it at the moment, because I had anxiety with it too, but it's not the same thing. So for that perspective, I want to say that, thank you for that. The other thing is everything you just mentioned about seeing someone stating their plight on one of the groups that we belong to. And oh my gosh, they're on the other side of the country or maybe the other side of the world. I don't know anybody there. How can I help that person? That is the very, 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 and I'll say very 50 more times why this show exists. It is the very reason why Brian and I have the movement that we do within, because even though our business is financial services, that's one piece of a quality life. You know what I mean? So that's all tied. So, yes, we're all on the same page.
What was that what is that that Facebook page of just for anybody who's listening or watching, if that's something they could join? What was the Facebook page that you guys connected on?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to pull it up on my Facebook.
Okay. But I belong to several of them, so I'm like, which one is it? I think is it transition to adulthood?
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, it is a transition to adulthood. That's correct.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
People be able to see you and find you, and find these kinds of resources in their states.
Of course, absolutely.
Thank you.
And just a shout out to the group itself. Whoever the admin is, just way to go. It's a great moment. But Sean, something you had mentioned before, and Brian, I'm pretty sure you mentioned before as well, is patience. Like a lot of people tell me, or anybody that's in special ed, or even as a teacher, like you must have great patience. And I'm going to say this right now, and I hope people understand this, is I am the most impatient person you could meet. I am a typical New Yorker. If I sit in traffic, I am uncomfortable. I am unhappy. Anybody who knows me can definitely attest to that. Mark is impatient. So it's not patience that we really need, but it's something that you pointed out to just now, Sean, which is compassion. And as soon as you have that moment of compassion, and it has to be compassion for yourself first, because anything that you're doing outwards, you have to start with yourself first. Because if you could do it with yourself, then you could do the output. And if you have that, then you can lead on to respect and understanding the individual, and then moving forward to like how to help that individual. So don't beat yourself too up when you're feeling impatient, because that's just the moment. One of the greatest feelings I've ever had is when you would be working in a classroom and you'd see that parent, especially with the younger ones, you see that parent come in, they have their child like wrapped around them, and it was a long night. You know, it was a 3 a.m. night. School didn't start till like, drop off started like 7:50 in the morning a.m. And it was a long night. The alarm went off. The dogs were going crazy. Their child was uncomfortable all night. Nothing worked. No stimming toy worked. No visual stimulation. No auditory support helped. They were miserable. The parents left to go to work. Their partner may also have to go to work. And sometimes these are NYPD, these are fire department, these are people that are working in the county like yourselves. These are people that are working in the subway as MTA workers. These are cleaning ladies. I mean, these are any type of job. Yeah, and right. That moment when they give you your child and you see that moment of relief, it's a great feeling because you're providing them a moment of safety and confidence. And there's nothing more you want to do when you're working on this side than give them the best. You want to make sure that you've given that parent more than what they've expected. You want to make sure that child's fed, that if they have an accident or they go into crisis, that they are well taken care of. Because from what I understand, I'm not a parent, but from what I understand, when you have a child, it's like a part or your entire heart just ripped out of your chest. They have legs and arms and they're free to roam. And once I understood that analogy and I saw, children with autism coming in or Down syndrome, and I saw these parents, I saw the look in their eyes, I realized I need to make sure that their heart is protected, is well fed, and is learning, and is coming home prepared to be relaxed and calm. Whatever happens on the other end when they go home, I'll give them the best support that the parent can and the resources, but I will make sure that your child comes back better and more relaxed and is prepared to come home with you. And that respect is one of my favorite parts about working in education. Is this is a team. We're a team. We're always a team.
Yeah, it's true. It's true respite care. It's respite care. You're giving the parents a chance to have a little bit of a break. I was just having this conversation with our friend Susanna, one of our regular guests on the show, and anytime that you lose a support, whether it's a behavioral therapist or some other therapist, it's not just that the services are lost to your child, but that period of respite that you kind of count on to keep our own mental health protected. And most people don't seem to understand. We've been doing the show. We've been having these conversations around special needs for 4.5 years, Sean and I. And some people look at this from the outside. They go, well, I don't have a child who has special needs, so this doesn't really apply to me. But the reality is, anybody who's in a caregiving position, even if they have somebody who's been in a car accident or as their parents getting older, they need long-term care, that caregiving, all of the needs that you have as a parent of a child with special needs become those same needs for a caregiver for somebody else whose needs now become special needs. And so having somebody like you, this is why I was telling people in the beginning, you're like a freaking angel here, because the value that you bring is not just to the children, it's to the family. And I think it's hopeful. It's a sign of hope for families to know that the people who service this community are a lot like you in the idea that they want to provide the support to the family, not just the child, but the whole family. And we all work together, and we're a village. And this is Sean often says, we're a village, right? And so I love that. I'm telling you, man, I'm in awe. I thought that I was just going to let Sean have a whole conversation. I'm just like blabbing on because I love this stuff. I think what you do is amazing. I think people who sponsor those who are going through recovery from addictions and whatnot, anybody who's giving of themselves, to your point, anybody who's being a good American citizen, who's being a good citizen, knows that part of it is contribution to others. And so I'm in awe. I love this.
I wanted to touch on that. We started to head down that road a little bit. Each of us has the capacity to be a hero. Every superhero has an origin.
That's right.
So what is yours? In other words, how were you raised? Is it your parents, your family, your community, all of the above? How does that get a person to have the wherewithal, the spiritual buffness, if you will, to decide that they're going to go out and help people in a situation that they have nothing to do with? Where does that come from?
Oh boy, Marc Esposito, the origin story. Marc Esposito, the origin story. This would be like the third or fourth. It's a trilogy. Three movies in a row. This is the third movie. This is the original.
You guys have mentioned it before, which is it's a village. I've been privileged to grow up in a very big family, where I actually come from Italian heritage and Haitian heritage. So I'm also from the islands as well. So big families, lots of multicultural, lots of different languages and foods and, faiths and beliefs, practices. Travel. I got to travel a lot as a young boy with my parents. I've gone to go on medical missions and supporting in Haiti. So my father actually started a nonprofit called Forgotten Children of Haiti, totally nonprofit. So what that focused on was supporting orphanages in Haiti. This is a Vietnam vet who came back, and he met my mom here actually at CUNY Queens College, and he had to meet her family if he wanted to progress in dating her. So he goes down there and he sees what's going on. He's like, this place needs help. And he was already studying medicine. At that point, I think he was a doctor. And he was like, we got to do something. So he went into nonprofit. He did it. He went for it. It's as old as I, which is fantastic. And then, after the earthquake in Haiti, I think that was 2013. If I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. There was another non-for-profit started by my uncle, who's also a medical doctor and his fellow colleagues. And they went down there and they also created clinics. So we have two non-for-profits working together, one focusing on orphanages and another focusing on medical care. Free, all free, just there to do one thing, and that's to help those in need. So I get to go on these medical missions, and I get to work hand in hand with, these two fantastic non-for-profits. I then grew up in this big family where people work different positions and have different experiences. I myself have family members with autism and Down syndrome, and I see how the family members work with their relatives. So I see all these different things, and that was actually a big start. So what happened when I was around 5 years old, we had two orphans that came up with one of the nuns from Forgotten Children of Haiti, and they needed to see the doctor. And at the time, my parents had just moved into the new house, and they had their old house, which hadn't been sold yet. So what they did was they sponsored and they allowed the nun and the two children to stay there. And I would go over there as a young boy and I would play with them, and it was no problem. I didn't see a difference. I just saw two kids who wanted to play. So I hung out with them, and it never crossed my mind that, just because someone was different or less able, that I wasn't allowed to play with them, or I would be discouraged to be with them. I guess that's where my origin really started, where I was just interested in just being with anybody. I didn't have a prejudice towards anyone. I'm not sure if I'm not able to answer your question exactly, but it just comes from being raised in a very large family, and a very open family, very kind family. My family's always been behind humanitarian efforts, and that's what we've been about. And I've only seen it bring joy. I mean, the most frustrating moments is when we can't get a shipping container out with goods or medical devices out.
Right.
When one of the proudest moments that I've also had was when I worked in the clinics down in Haiti, and off. There's actually a smaller island off of Haiti called Ile Vache. And I got to be there, and we got to see hundreds of patients, and there are these little kids, and there are these mothers, and there are parents that will wait 6 hours in a line in the hot sun, and they'll wait just for their kid to be seen because they have a cough. I mean, 6 hours. I mean, people are upset about 2-hour waits for a COVID test. And I know it's cold and you're scared you got COVID, but 6 hours for your child, because this is the only opportunity you have for a doctor. Why wouldn't she want to be there? Why wouldn't she want to be part of that team? I mean, it's something I think about 177, like the origin, it's hard to say, because when you come across those individuals, whether they be the student or the colleagues that became my friends, how do you not want to be part of that team? How do you not want to work with them? How do you not want to see that student again? It's really hard. One of my early experiences as a teacher's aide, I had this student who he was around 6 years old. I mean, the kid was adorable, absolutely adorable. He had no assessment. The parent didn't want to do assessment. He wasn't comfortable. He was afraid of the stigma. And this guy was coming in, and my supervisor at the time said, look, this guy, he's got a lot of aggressive behaviors. The reason why he's here is because he was removed from his other schools because he harmed the teachers there. And I mean, this is a little guy, but like he was quite destructive when he wanted to be. And he would go into crisis every day with me, and I had to swaddle him. He was small enough where I could swaddle him. He would go into tantrum for at least 20 to 30 minutes. And, every morning after I would see him after the day, he was all smiles. At the end of the day, he was all smiles. In the middle of the day, he would go into crisis. And, at the end of the week, it would break my heart because I know how upset he would be and how important I was into helping him. So it's hard when you see that and then you go, oh, I don't want to work in that field, or I don't want to be there for that person, because you literally are that person who's helping out. And I don't want to give that up. I don't want to give up that opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
and speaking of your,
I hope I answered the question.
You did. And not only did you answer the question, but speaking of your family and, the source of your power, so to speak, I'm assuming Michael is your brother, right?
I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Who is Michael?
Yeah. So
Michael is joining in on the chat. Yeah, Michael is joining in on the chat, and he's giving props to your mom as well, because
that's right.
He's saying that your mom worked with the New York City Board of Education for over 30 years.
That's right. So actually, my parents are really my mentors in that sense. My mother worked for the Board of Ed, and she was an administrator. I mean, she's got, when you think about my origin story, it's nothing compared to my mom. She has done extraordinary work with the Department of Ed. And it's really fantastic what she's done. She's a fantastic leader, a great advocate, and just a great mentor. She's somebody that really taught me about the methodologies, the techniques and strategies that you need. It's just, if you don't have them, you can't teach, and you need to have them. And then my father, who went into medicine, he's a PA, he's a neurologist. I got to understand neuroscience. So when I look at like autism or Down syndrome, I will actually research the neuroscience behind the disability or the developmental or the cognitive misconception that's there for that individual. So I get these two wonderful resources. I can bounce ideas off of them. And it's really fantastic. But I'm really happy my brother chimed in on there. Thank you, Michael.
And he was going to say, which was one of the questions I was going to ask you. He's mentioned Forgotten Children of Haiti. I'm assuming that's one of the nonprofits that you had mentioned. Is that right?
That's right. That's the one that my father started
on Facebook. And what was the second?
Functional today.
Yeah. So there's two questions we at one time.
So the second one. I don't know have off the top of my head. I could definitely add that in there.
I'm sure Michael will have it there.
He's a very good brother.
And we've lost Sean there for a quick second, but Forgotten Children of Haiti it's where you're back. It's still ongoing. It's a Facebook page, and there's still
yeah. My brother has definitely spearheaded a lot of the social media on that, and he's done great strides for bringing like more attention to it, bringing fundraisers back. With COVID, it's held back a lot of our support that we would typically do for fundraisers. But my brother has done tremendous work, and I can't leave out my sister either. She's a nurse as well, and she also does tremendous work in the field, and helping with Forgotten Children of Haiti and making sure that we're still doing what my father started, what my parents started. So both my siblings are also instrumental in my origin story and the ongoing efforts of FCH. So a lot of things going on right there.
Beautiful. I'm going to ask you one other question. So you mentioned methodology, and that you learned that from your parents. And I don't know if we haven't really covered that yet. So just for people to know, is there a certain methodology that you use as you're dealing with these folks that you can chat about?
So my methodology really starts with person-centered learning. And what that does is you focus on the individual's interests and what motivates them. You look at their strengths, not their deficiencies first. I mean, of course, when you do any type of assessment, you're looking at, where they're lacking, where you want them to be, and where they're at that current moment. But if you focus on where they are strong and you just grow that, you're going to see the deficiencies start to go away, because it's almost as if you're training them to get past that. Once you focus
on an athlete to some degree, right? That's how we train athletes.
It really is,
right?
Absolutely, yeah. You start to see, like, if you want because I played soccer, so if you want your student to get better at dribbling a ball down the field, you want to focus on their running first. And they might be really fantastic runners, and you talk to them about running, and you see their thought process on that. One of my clients right now, his favorite thing is one of his favorite interests is music. He loves music. He loves hearing it. He loves engaging with it. Everything from opera to rock to dubstep, he's there. I mean, like bachata, everything, and it's fantastic. I get in my car with him, and we can listen to anything. And I love hanging out with him in my car. It's like my favorite time to hang out with him. But we use a website called flowcabulary.com, and what that does is that it presents lesson plans using music. Like it could be like a rap or through lyrics, and he engages really well with that, as opposed to me just reading slides or him reading slides off a PowerPoint. If we focus on what the interest is first, you have the initial hook. It's almost like when you watch an ad on television, you're marketing. You want to market to that individual. What are they interested in? Once you have that hook, as long as you present the desired learning into smaller blocks, like, which is something called task analysis, you present it in that form, they're going to grab onto each step and they're going to climb that ladder of learning. Now, what you want to avoid is creating either too many steps or too large of a task for them to chew on. So you have to really make sure that you're assessing the individual beforehand, during, and post. And one of my favorite things about special ed is you are consistently modifying and adapting to that individual, not to make it easier, but to have this like consistent challenge that's occurring.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow. That's how you have growth. One of the things I live by is, people see failure as like this end result. It's like after the equal sign. And failure has always been part of the equation to learning. You need to fail to learn to then equal to success. And once you understand that, you're going to nail it. You have to fail, because then you can see where you made the error, where the misconception was. You had to be down. And this just goes back to when Sean was saying, I don't feel great. I felt down. And sometimes you need those moments to motivate you for the next day. Sometimes your body is telling you need to rest. And we see that with students and individuals. You need that moment to see where they're at. Maybe they responded to a stimuli differently. Was there something on in the room? Did they need something tangible? What did they need? And then you're able to support them better. So I use that mixture of methodology to teach. I also use techniques from the NEST program, which is from NYU Steinhardt, and from what I learned at Queens College. But one of the biggest things that we, as a teacher and educators, will always advocate for is evidence-based teaching strategies. As long as there's evidence, and I mean positive evidence to teach, we're going to use that technique. And we're going to assess, and we're going to see where it's going. But that's where you really want to start. You always want to start with something that has evidence, that has proven that there is success in a positive manner. As soon as it's a little negative, I wouldn't, only if it's like an improper technique. But if you have somebody going through a teaching strategy, and you see that individual, you see that student pushing back, it doesn't necessarily mean that the technique is wrong or that you're even doing the technique incorrectly. It just means pushback. I mean, you see that with athletes, you guys said before. So you're going to get pushback, and you need to do proper assessment to make sure that that's not harming the individual, whether it be cognitively or physically. As long as you're doing that, you're doing good work.
Do you have an example of evidence-based? Like, give us an example of what that means for those that don't know evidence-based strategy.
So like task analysis is an evidence-based strategy. So it was proven that if you had a large task, let's say it was saying hello when you walk through the door, you broke it down, and you prep that individual as to what's to be expected. That's the first one. You want to fill in the blank for them. You prep them in that sense. And then you say, okay, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open the door. Step 2, you're going to keep your chin up, and you're going to attempt to make eye contact. If it's a very uncomfortable situation for them to make eye contact, you say, just stare at the top button of somebody's shirt, or an ear, or an eyebrow. That always helps. And then after that, the next task you'd present is you could shake a hand, or you could just wave a hello, and say, hey, how you doing? So you just break each step into a smaller task. And then to finish, you say, okay, you could. The task would be, now you can walk back to your favorite chair, or you can go to the refrigerator to get a drink, or you could turn around and come back to me. And there's a lot of evidence behind that strategy and that technique of task analysis. It's one of the reason why I bring it up also is because it's one of my favorites. It's just a really simplistic way to present a task. Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you ever find that there's a technique that is, you give an example of pushback? Because I remember when Elijah was in speech, he had probably, of the whole journey, there were 2 speech therapists where it just it wasn't happening. And and one of them, the very first one he had, it was her, not that she was wrong per se, and I knew even less then, so I wasn't in a position to say that the technique was wrong, but I just figured, or we did, that there wasn't a click between the two. So we would keep an eye out for that. So there are times where we'd be like, well, there isn't a fit. There isn't a fit here, because we expect him to get upset, because from resistance comes growth, right? You don't get muscles by picking up feathers, right? But what I'm wondering now, especially going back to our experiences, are there times when the approach, like you said, it's not being done wrong, but maybe the approach is not a fit with that client?
Yeah. So I just want to understand your question. So you're asking, like, is there an issue with approach? Is that correct? Or
right, with the technique itself, as opposed to the
so technique is what you're actually you're just implementing what that is. But there's a lot more around that. You have to plan. You have to make sure that your setting, your environment is comfortable, that the time of day is correct. Was this after lunchtime? Was this before lunchtime? Were they overstimulated? Have they felt overwhelmed lately? Those are really, really important details that you need to know before a technique is applied. You need to, because you create baseline. You've created a foundation of where that individual is and when they feel comfortable and how they're going to engage. So the technique can be okay, but the reason why the engagement may not be working is because the room might be too bright, or the person coming into work might be wearing a cologne or perfume that they're very sensitive to, or they're wearing a piece of clothing. The shirt that I'm wearing right now, it's this can be upsetting to an individual. They could see this and they go right into crisis. You could wear the color orange and it could be upsetting, or you could use a certain term, yes or no, or great job. I had a student that, as soon as you said great job, they would go into crisis. Or you said happy birthday on their birthday, they lost it. That's really important information that you always need to go and find out. And it can always seem meticulous and like overwhelming. I need all this information just for a technique. But once you have all that information, you're able to deduce and see what didn't work and what is going to work. And then the technique will typically work, no problem. But you need to preface and make sure that individual is prepped. I actually have a story about that if we have time, but you have to go through that. And once you have that information, you can execute the technique much better. And you just have to see what the individual is sensitive towards.
You're gonna have to write a book, Mark. You're gonna have to write a book.
Yeah. My brother will help me with that.
There you go. I think we've got time for the story, though. I mean, dare to tell it. Is this something we can do within?
Oh, yeah, no,
6-7 minutes.
If anything, I might get a little emotional. I was working.
We don't know anything about being emotional, by the way. We cry every freaking episode, so do it.
I got to admit, I got a little choked up. I got a little choked up a few times because I could cry about this job anytime because I love it. But I had an individual. It does. And I have a good friend of mine, a colleague of mine. We're really close. I met him in the program. So he introduced me to his client, and I got to work with his client. And at the time, he was 14 years old, over 6 foot, like 6'4", 6'5", big kid. Okay, and I'm 6, so he's got 5 inches on me, easy. He is over 200 pounds. He's a little verbal. He can say what he wants, but not exactly what he wants. Not into a full sentence like I want Burger King or something like that. He's very sensitive to temperature change and has a strict diet. So I plan and go for the big one, and I say, let's go to the Bronx Zoo. I'm traveling from Long Island to the Bronx Zoo, which is like 30 miles. Okay, so we could do the car ride. I've done car rides with him, no problem. I've worked with him a few times before, no problem. So we go to the Bronx Zoo. It's early in the day. I'm like, okay, we'll avoid crowds. It won't be that big of a problem. I prep him. I tell him what we're going to do. I mean, I do a whole slideshow with him beforehand. That's how I typically will prep my client. I'll do a slideshow so they could see, know about exits, safe spaces, what to expect, who to see, the colors, things to look forward to, maybe a phrase or a code word they need to display to me or demonstrate to me if they really they need to go, they've had enough. Okay. Yeah. And we'll practice that. I'll make sure that's practiced beforehand always, and lots of images. So we go to the Bronx Zoo, and I have it's a North Face, but it's essentially a fanny pack. So I have a fanny pack with, a cooling towel. I've got bananas for him. I've got snacks. I've got water bottles. I got everything you need. Baby wipes. I got hand sanitizer. I got bug spray. We're ready to go. All right. So we go to the Bronx Zoo. He's having a wonderful time. We're there for about 2.5 hours, and then suddenly he goes into crisis. And when this young man goes into crisis, he jumps up and down. 6'5", over 200 pounds, jumping up and down, screaming. He starts hitting only me though. So I make sure he focuses only on me. So he's doing that. And, we go to a safe space where he can go into crisis. And this is one of the parts where I know for the parents, this is where it gets hard. The hardest part actually wasn't when he went into crisis at the Bronx Zoo. The hardest part was when he was enjoying looking at the bears or like lions or zebras, and other kids were looking. Parents would smile at other kids, other parents' kids, and people would engage with their kids, but people didn't engage with him, and people didn't engage with me unless I initiated it. That killed me. That killed me to see that he's 14 years old, and he's not being appreciated for being 14 years old. And when he went into crisis, people cleared the ways, which was very respectful, but it wasn't like a clear the path, like, oh, this individual is having a tough time, like any individual could at an age where they go into a tantrum. And you see your 4-year-old go into a tantrum, oh, they're adorable, But when this guy went to tantrum crisis, he was no longer adorable. He was maybe dangerous. And I'm standing there with him, and I'm a professional through and through. And it hurt. It really hurt to see people not smile and look at him the way that we look at these individuals. We look at them with a lot of love, a lot of respect, and a lot of loyalty, because we know what they can do. We know that they are beyond anything that people like what they see, what they expect. Yeah. They are more than what they present. And that's huge. So I get him out of the Bronx Zoo. He's all cool. He's all good. We're going over the bridge. He wants to go to Burger King. We go to Burger King, and we get to Burger King, and he gets his burger. He's sitting there, and I just lose it. Like, I am bawling because to know that we just went to Burger King, and he's just a kid, and people didn't see that except for those in our community. We see that, and it's so hard. But one of the greatest things I learned from that moment was we can't force society to change for our community. What we have to do is prepare our community to adapt and take on society, and not in an aggressive way, but be prepared to handle the tough situations, and to just have that great awareness that you guys are actually doing right now on this platform, and what they're doing on Facebook or any social media platform that we see these communities emerging and working together. We have to work together and prepare our group to just be out there and handle those situations. Or, like I said before, sometimes I wish I had like a flag on me or a shirt or a tag or an ID that said, I'm an advocate, I'm a special ed teacher, I'm here with you. So if you need a moment, I'm here. You can trust me. We're in Home Depot, your kid ran off, hold the cart down, I'll run after your kid, we'll work together. And that's the future I see for special education in our community. I see what you're doing right now is just interlacing the community, getting more awareness out there, and just better education, better standards. I mean, I feel sometimes that our standard, society standards is like right here, but we need to be right here so we can shoot higher, because since it's so low, our family members or our students or our siblings or whoever this individual may be to you, they're just meeting a standard to survive. I mean, no one on this panel right now is just trying to survive. We're shooting for the best every time, whether what school we went to or what job we had. So why is the bar so low for our community? It needs to be higher. It needs to be not a grandeur type, but realistic. And we have to hit it, and we have to push for that. And I am very happy and privileged to be part of that. I'm privileged to be in people's homes and work with them. I'm privileged to be on your platform right now. And it's a privilege to be part of the village that I'm in, because I get to be part of that and I get to advocate for that. And I love being an advocate. It's great, man. It's awesome.
That's and you know what, Mark, honestly, it's a privilege for us to be able to engage with you. Obviously your heart is huge. You're in this for completely selfish reasons, and you're setting a standard for the way all of us should be. And it's a great way for us to end the show. And as I said, right, like the hour's over, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the hour's over.
Flies by.
And you know what's crazy, what we talk about as we end the show every week is, you know, empathy and love is what is needed every day. We're going to have difference of opinions. We're going to have difference of, you know, how we react to news and where we're getting our news from these days. And, you know, it's okay to have that difference of opinion. To your point, we need to set the bar, we need to set the standard higher for how we communicate and interact with one another. And if it starts with the basis of empathy and love. I'm so grateful that you spent this hour with us. As I say every week, I wish we had 2 hours to do this, because man, it just went by so fast, and I hope that we get a chance to have you on again. How can people reach you on Instagram and Facebook? How can people, if you want to just, how can people reach you?
Right.
If they want to
so the best way to contact me is actually through my Gmail, which is my first name, the number 6 Esposito. So that's Marc6Esposito@gmail.com. I'm on my email all the time, and if you want to look up, I just made a Facebook page. The handle is Marc6 Esposito at Special Education 6. And you could find me on Facebook if you want to contact me there. I'm open to help you out with, if you need materials made, if you need guidance, if you need someone to talk to, if you're a parent. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. That's how you can contact me. I'm happy to do it.
So amazing, man. We're grateful, and again, grateful for you and the champions who participate in this conversation, those who actively have been a part of our show, and those who watch and contribute. And your brother is part of that village as well. So we thank everybody for listening and for watching it on, watching the video version of the podcast and listening on podcast platforms wherever you're hearing us. Thank you everybody for being a part of what we're doing. Man, Mark, that was my can't tell, but my hair is kind of blown away from the phenomenal.
It's a pleasure,
energy, man. I love you, man. That's so fantastic. Sean, you want to wrap us up and wrap up the show?
Yeah, I will. Again, just deep gratitude. This is why we're here. And when I say here, I mean here. I'm talking about here on the planet. This is why you take up space on the planet. Service to others is the rent we pay. Is the rent we pay for our room on Earth. I can't take credit for that. That came from the great Muhammad Ali. But I want to thank you again, Mark, for your time with us here today. It was just tremendous value. As always, I want to thank the women in my life, just my wife, Laura, and my mom. Without them, I would not be here in more ways than 9. And as we talk about growing our village and helping people, again, the financial piece is one thing that we do. So for those of you that are catching us live, we have our event that is taking place this evening. Online registration is still available as well for that, and the link is in the chat. But we want to take this and make this as big as we possibly can, touch as many people as we can. We're going to have a website. We're putting that together as well, where we have a resource list. We want to be the guys who raise our hands if we're in a room and someone says, does anybody know a plumber? Does anybody know a good chef? Related to special needs, we have a responsibility to take care of each other. So with that said, just thank you again for everyone for tuning in. And everybody remember that somebody someplace needs to know that they matter. They need to know that you care. They want to know that they're seen, and they want to know that they count. There's no such thing as special needs. We all have the same needs. The only thing that is special is the amount that is needed by those with a disability, whether it's through catastrophic injury or anything else. Thank you so much. We love you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.